It is a big blessing that in Boca Raton we have this monument that memorizes the victims of Holodomor. We are here to honor the memory of millions of Ukrainians who perished in the Holodomor in 1932-1933, a man-made famine that is remaining one of the most tragic pages in the Ukrainian history. The word Holodomor contains two Ukrainian words, Golod, which is famine, and Mor, extermination. Millions of innocent men, women, and children were deliberately starved to death under the brutal regime of Joseph Stalin. It was not an accident, it was not a natural disaster. It was part of the Stalin's agenda to eliminate Ukrainian nation, to suppress Ukrainian spirit, to erase Ukrainian culture. Imagine the despair of a woman who is witnessing her little children slowly dying, and she was not able to help because all the crops that her family grew were confiscated. Imagine whole villages blacklisted, blocked off from the food, surrounded by soldiers, so no one could escape and seek for help. By the time the famine ended, at least 3.9 million Ukrainians have died. People in the West knew what was happening in Ukraine, but they chose to turn their backs from this horror. Walter Duranty, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist from the New York Times, knew what was happening. He was in the Soviet Union. He witnessed famine, but he did not report it. He decided not to report it in what he was sending back to the United States. He dismissed it in these reports, and he called the stories of starvation the exaggerations. His silence cost millions of lives of the Ukrainian people. The international community turned a blind eye to the suffering of Ukrainians. The silence of the West taught the wrong lesson. The tyrants of the time learned the wrong lesson from the silence of the West. They realized that they could kill millions, and it is okay if the world allows to do that and does not notice it and stays silent. The failure to confront the Holodomor encouraged Hitler. Less than a decade after Holodomor, Hitler unleashed the horror of the Holocaust. Both genocides have the same origin: the dehumanization of entire groups of people and the world's reluctance to act. Stalin famously said, "A single death is a tragedy, and millions of deaths are statistics." Statistics and this brutal math is continuing today. The tactics may differ, but the reason and the intent is the same: to eliminate Ukrainian nation, to suppress Ukrainian spirit, to erase Ukrainian culture. In 2022, Russian occupation forces in Mariupol dismantled the monument to Holodomor. They said it's disinformation at the state level. This is a deliberate act of suppressing the truth, and it's continuation of the crimes that started almost a century ago. The crime continues. History is repeating itself, and the world, once again, is facing the choice to act or to look away. Just like the West turned it back to the horrors of Holodomor in 1930s, some people in the West are willing to turn their backs away from what is happening in Ukraine today. Another genocide, when Ukrainians are exterminated, Ukrainian infrastructure, civilian infrastructure is being destroyed, hospitals, power plants, Ukrainians are being kept without electricity, running water and heat during the winter. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, more than 12,000 Ukrainian civilians, including hundreds of children, have lost their lives in the places far from any front line. And 27,000 Ukrainian civilians have been wounded. 12 million of Ukrainians have been misplaced within Ukraine or were forced to leave Ukraine to seek peace and safety. It's the biggest humanitarian crisis since World War II. The war in Ukraine is not just a battle for territory, it's a battle for freedom, for survival. The atrocities committed in Bucha, in Mariupol, and numerous other places in Ukraine, it's just a reminder that the evil that orchestrated the Holodomor almost a century ago is still here. It still exists today, and tyrants are watching, and they are learning from our actions or inactions. Today we are honoring the victims of Holodomor. We must remember that Ukraine needs help more than ever. It's the darkest hour in the Ukrainian history. And the fight that is happening today is the fight to ensure that the history does not repeat itself. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!